Hi, this is Alex, and if you love music, well, you've come to the right place because we're all about albums. I was fortunate to spend the day at the Florida Audio Expo in Tampa, and that was held on the weekend of February 21 through the 23rd. At the start of the day, I noticed that the crowd was a little bit on the older side, but as the morning wore on and the afternoon came, more young people did show up to the show. I also noted several couples coming to the show, either wives or significant others, and they seem to be enjoying themselves, and this is a good trend. It's sort of like being at an arts and crafts festival, which is more of a family event. Everyone was friendly and in good spirits, despite being a 40-degree morning in Tampa, which is rather cold for the Tampa Bay area. But fear not, it did warm up into the 60s in the afternoon, making for a beautiful day. I'm not going to review the actual electronics, speakers, etc. that were shown at the show. Some were quite exciting, interesting. Some sounded fantastic. Some were great bargains. But I'm not here to tell you about that in particular. As always, I feel that the sound of components are subjective in nature, and my best of show is probably not your best of show. So I don't want to go there, but rather I'd like to talk about some trends that I'm noticing at the audio festival. And I think these trends may secondarily affect sales of physical media. So here are my observations. First, I noted that there were very few CD players at the Audio Exposition. Now, the CD players that I did see were not standalone players, but rather one of these all-in-one box solutions. These all-in-one boxes not only included a CD and/or SACD player, but also had a DAC, which stands for digital to analog conversion, as well as a built-in streamer. I did note one standalone CD player by Esoteric, which is one of the higher end level CD transports that are sold today in the audio industry. However, there was one or two rooms that I did get to hear some music on a good old silver disc, and the music was actually quite good from the few samples that I heard on the CD player. And again, this was an exception. So CDs are not featured very prominently at all at the audio show, and that has been seen year after year, and the CD player may start to dwindle to a point where it's not seen at all, with the exception of a few all-in-one box solutions where the CD player you can either listen to, or more commonly you can rip your CD music into an external storage device. So to me, it seems like the audio industry is ignoring more and more the CD player. There were several rooms that were featuring a reel-to-reel player. Now, going back even 5 or 10 years, you would never see a reel-to-reel player. And I actually saw maybe a half a dozen or more rooms that featured a reel-to-reel tape player. Now, I can tell you, to my ear, reel-to-reel players, I believe, make the most convincing live sounding music that I've ever heard. I believe that reel-to-reel tapes sound close to live performances if you were at a concert venue. And you can remember that in the old days of analog, when music was recorded, it went directly to quarter-inch tape. And thus we get the term the master tapes. And so I guess if a master tape was on a reel-to-reel player, then that's the way music will likely sound the best. So if you want to listen to your music in analog, you have a choice of a reel-to-reel player, which is quite pricey, as I said. However, the second choice, other than a cassette player, which is few and far between, we have vinyl, which is quite popular these days and probably will live on for generations to come in a niche type market. Now, to listen to vinyl, you need a turntable, you need a tone arm, you need a cartridge, you need a phono preamplifier, as well as all the accessories to keep your vinyl records clean and ready to go to listen to music. If you combine all those prices, especially in a higher end level, probably the price will be close or maybe even more so than a reel-to-reel player. A reel-to-reel player is an all-in-one box solution. It has not only the electronic components, it has the tape heads, it has the power supply, it even has the reels that you can load tapes on. However, why don't I believe reel-to-reel players are the future if I do believe that this is the best sound quality possible? No, it's not the price. What I believe it is the limited quantities of reel-to-reel music available. So if you're comparing vinyl records to reel-to-reel tapes, vinyl records, new releases are in the tens of thousands, whereas reel-to-reel tapes are in the hundreds. Okay, so let's get to some good news. The good news is that many rooms featured a turntable as their source component, and that was great. However, what I did notice, which I believe is one of the sad trends, is that these turntables stayed idle. And if the music was played via a turntable, it was only for a while, whereas the music then went to being played digitally, usually through a music streaming device. So what's happening? Well, the representatives of the audio industries and the dealers, they are promoting the products using digital source components. And I believe if you still want to see turntable sales continue to go up, I believe you're going to have to show them at the shows what they can do, and not only the brand new stuff, but also the old standby guard. You want to be showing off your equipment year after year, not show it off less and hope just because you have a turntable in the room, but you're not using it, that will make a sale. No, it won't. So what were the dealers and representatives doing? Well, they were streaming their music, and they were typically using Qobuz or Tidal Music as their streaming service. Now, I get it. Listen, it's harder to play vinyl records at a show. First of all, they're cumbersome to travel with, and they are fragile. Also, you can only bring a limited number of records, maybe 100 or even 200 records, which is a lot that a person would carry to a show. Most dealers who do bring vinyl records bring usually less than 50 albums because they want to have these pristine copies as well as the best sounding albums out there. And so I don't blame them. They want to show the best of the best possible to make a sale. So if it's more cumbersome, why do it? They are streaming their music nowadays, and it's easy. You don't have any extra hardware to bring with you. Also, you can have playlists ready, which are songs that will show off your stereo system in the best light possible. So do I blame them? No, it's a lot easier to show off your electronics by streaming music. After all, you can have a playlist ready that features great songs that will show off your equipment in a positive light. However, in using these great playlists, it really takes away the ability for the consumer sitting and listening to the music to be able to request music that they want to listen to. So that's one of the things I don't like about the playlists that people bring to stream at the audio shows. So even though vinyl was not played much at the show, although there were multiple turntables, they were giving people what they wanted, and that is there was a pretty big selection of vinyl to be purchased at the show. So they know it sells, but it's cumbersome to play, therefore they're streaming. So although there are multiple analog products at the audio shows, it is digital that is being featured, and why not? After all, that's where most of the music industry revenue comes from. Now, for the last year, we have complete statistics available, which was 2023. We note that the audio industry, according to the RIAA, brought in $17.1 billion in revenue. That's a pretty big number. And of that, 84% was through streaming. Streaming made up 84% of the total revenue dollars. That comes to about $14.4 billion. And of that $14.4 billion, $11.1 billion came from streaming service subscriptions. Now, what is the other $3 or so billion that was the difference? Well, that comes from advertisements as well as radio services. And now I come to the best feature of the show, and that has nothing to do with the equipment being sold. It has to do with the music being played. Now, I've been to audio shows for at least 15 years. And during that time, you can hear the same 20 to 30 songs played over and over again because they are demonstration level music. So you would hear female vocalists, jazz ensembles, classical orchestras, as well as the occasional singer-songwriter singing with an acoustic guitar. However, at this audio show, what I heard was totally different music. Yes, some of those songs were still featured, but I was hearing more and more music such as classic rock. I was hearing some alternative music. I was even hearing, believe it or not, folk music and Americana, which I have really hardly heard prior to this time. We are also listening more and more to some of the pop music that is not only current, but some of the older pop music that was well recorded. In fact, I want to point out one particular room that was quite excellent. It was run by a young man. I believe he said he was 36 years old, but he had fabulous musical tastes, which he says comes from his parents, who were constantly feeding him music throughout his younger life. Now, what was interesting here was, yes, he was streaming music from a tablet, and yes, he had a playlist ready, but the music had a very, very wide range of choices. And not only did we hear some classic rock that we knew, we also heard artists that we knew, but these were deep cuts of songs I have never heard by this artist, which were quite excellent. And of course, we also heard many, many new songs and artists that I had not heard from ever, but they were quite interesting and exciting. Now, he was playing the music using a streaming device, but using the speakers were by Fine Audio. They're a relatively newer audio company. However, they have a long history. So how is that they have a long history if they're a relatively young company? Well, Fine Audio is created by a group of audio engineers that came from the Tannoy company. And Tannoy has a very, very long history in the audio industry, and they were well respected. So what I want to do now is give you some of the examples of some of the great music I heard, not only in the room I just told you about, but in other rooms as well. So here are some of the examples. First off, I heard Bloody Well Right. Yes, many of you know that song from Supertramp, from their album Crime of the Century, which came out in 1974. And I would say it was absolutely spectacular. It really was an audiophile quality recording, at least on the equipment and speakers I heard them through. Next I heard was a song from a well-known artist, a big diva, Celine Dion. And this album came out in 1995 called Deux. And the album featured a song called Le Ballet. She sings all the songs on this album in French. And I must say, this particular song, which I would call sort of like a deep cut of the Celine Dion repertoire, was absolutely spectacular, and I was enthralled. Next up, believe it or not, I heard a song by Prince, which was excellent, which I'd never heard before. It's called When the Lights Go Down. And the reason I never heard of it before, it's on an album called Old Friends for Sale, which the music industry released some songs by Prince, which were previously never released. And this song, as well as many of the other songs that appear on this album, were quite excellent. Next up, I heard a live album entitled the Kokua Festival. And this is a festival run by Jack Johnson. And on this album, he is featured singing with many friends. The song I heard on this 2012 album was entitled Oldie But a Goodie, A Pirate Looks at 40. And on this song, Jack Johnson features Dave Matthews, as well as the incomparable guitar playing of Tim Reynolds. Quite an excellent song. You should check it out. It's a great version of that song. Next up, we have Pete Blasco, an artist I just kind of barely remember, but he had an album in 2004 entitled Deeper. Great album, and this is more of a pop type sound, or maybe you would consider it more of a rhythm and blues type album, but it is quite excellent, and you should check out Pete Blasco. And now I get to the last two songs that I heard that were quite exciting for me. The first was, believe it or not, an Americana folk artist, Chris Stapleton. The song was from his 2017 album, From a Room, Volume 1. Another great album that you should all check out. And finally, one of the really overlooked great singers of the 60s and 70s. He did win a few Grammy Awards for his tunes, and that is Lou Rawls. And the song that I am talking about is called Tobacco Road. Yes, that Tobacco Road. And that was the title of the album as well. And that album came out in 1964. So you can see a wide variety of music was featured, and that is the best news from the audio industry that I am seeing now at these audio expositions. So wrapping up, all in all, this was a really great and fun show. Yes, I did see some very, very expensive electronics and speakers going into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it was fun to listen to them and hear what is possible today when they are reproducing music for us. And finally, the best news of all is all the new music that is being featured and the wide variety of genres that are finally appearing at the audio shows. And I gotta say, this show, I'd probably use the Shazam app more than any other show, which is great news because that means I'm finding a lot of new artists, and that's the thing I love the most. And now for last video's unknown album. This is probably the easiest album I've ever given as an unknown, and many of you did get it. And it was Coldplay's 2002 album, A Rush of Blood to the Head. This album featured a couple of Coldplay's best known songs, including Clocks and The Scientist. Speaking about the song The Scientist, I'd like to let you know that one of my favorite artists, Amy Mann, did record this song live. You can find this song only on CD, and it was on her CD called Lost in Space, but it was a deluxe special edition. This song appears on disc number 2 on the special edition, and it was magnificent. I've even heard some people boast that Amy Mann sang it and played it even better than Coldplay. I don't know if that's true, but she definitely gives them a run for their money. So if you're interested, search that out and you won't be disappointed. That was just a great performance of The Scientist. And now for this video's unknown album. Great. Hope you got that one. As always, if you think you know the answer, let me know in the comments section below, and I'll let you know how you did. As always, this is Alex with All About Albums. Thanks for listening. Have a great day, and remember, keep them spinning.